All right. Today I have Kiley Peters. She's a serial entrepreneur who's currently on a mission to help 1 million women achieve financial freedom and build more fulfilling lives with the 100 Collective. She currently runs RAYNE IX, an executive consultancy for women and small business owners, and recently intentionally shut down her business, which was a digital content strategy agency, Brainchild Studios. So I'm really interested in diving into that. And then lastly, she has her own podcast, ironically on the same topic. So I was very giddy when I met you because it's cool to meet your kind of people, called Welcome to Aloma. It's a great listen. Kiley, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. Going real well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No problem. No problem. All right, we're gonna start with the fun question that I got. Pretty sure it was Adele, I guess from a previous season that gave me this question, but I love it. What did you want to be growing up?
Oh my gosh, this might be the entire interview. I wanted to be everything, honestly. What did I want to be growing up? I specifically remember being in 6th grade thinking I wanted to be an architect. I think I realized that required way more math than I wanted in my life. I also was like in a phase where I like doodled, like I would draw. I drew a lot. I was like an artistic kid, but I would draw like these women because I wanted to draw what they were wearing. So I thought I was going to like do fashion, which I'm very not a fashionable person. So that was definitely never going to be the path for me. My mom had us always creating things and selling it. So I think entrepreneurship was in my blood before I even knew what that meant. She used to sew for a friend of hers, and then I sewed for her, for the friend of hers. But yeah, I wanted to be all kinds of things. I mean, I think if you probably asked my mom that question, she would be like, oh yeah, here's 6 more things that Kiley wanted to be. But I can tell you that entrepreneur was never one of them, mostly because I didn't have any idea what that was growing up. And for a period of time, I did what we called media studies in high school. This was before like all content was digitized. I mean, I was like out there making legit music videos with a huge ass VHS like camera recorder on my shoulder, with like VHS tapes and then like digital tapes, and then I would be in the editing studio, edit start, edit stop, in like this massive like editing board. That's the world I came from. And so I remember graduating high school and I was like, oh, I'm going to make a career out of making music videos because that would be super fun. Yeah, I don't think I have the heart and soul for that either. But that was a thing that I explored for a long time. I fell madly in love with advertising space, which is where I thought I was going to start my career, which I didn't. But yeah, lots of things. I don't think I would say like I ever wanted to be a scientist or an engineer or anything like that. Architect is probably the closest that it comes. But yeah, I love life. I'm curious. So I've always been interested in lots of things. That's a fun question to start off with. I like that. Thank you.
I absolutely love that question. Thank you. Shout out to Adele. Yeah, mine's simple. I wanted to be a basketball player. I always knew I wanted to be in business.
Okay.
But it was primarily I wanted to be a basketball player that then turned into Magic Johnson, who would then be a Hall of Famer with this big business empire. But I retired at 17, so I just focused on business. On business.
That's funny you say that because so I went to undergrad at Marquette University, and I luckily got tuition remission because my dad worked there. And I bring this up because I had the opportunity to go get my MBA for free had I gone straight after college, undergrad. But at the time, I was so committed to the fact that I would never be in business. And I was so committed to like, I'm going to be a creative in an ad agency. I would never need my MBA. That's stupid. So I I threw away a free MBA, and I'm still now years later paying the student loans on the MBA I did get years later. But I think it's so interesting how, the things that we were committed to or we were so committed against really don't hold a lot of clout in the long run. It's just like a moment in time.
Exactly. We have so many things in common. It's quite funny. My mom also worked for a university, and I also had a stint where I wanted to be an architect. So we'll have to dive into that.
Funny.
Eventually. I think I was in 9th grade when I realized architecture wasn't for me, but I think it was those AutoCAD classes that weren't so fun.
Well, you made a lot further than I did. I was just like, I know I still have this. In 6th grade, I think 6th grade was like pivotal architect moment for me. I had mapped out what I thought my dream house would be, and I did my best to put like all of the measurements for every single room and everything in it. I also mapped out like the prospective names of all 5 children that I wanted to have, and all of their horses and all of their goldfish, which all had names, and dogs. Apparently I wanted to live on a farm. And ironically, my dream house was like the house that I was living in because I had no other context. But yeah, that was like the epitome of my architecture career. And that's all I've got. And it was all downhill from there.
Well, to wrap up our rant on architecture and our childhood dreams, I did build my dream house in The Sims. I was a very, very
in The
hardcore
Sims. I was like, wait a second, what?
No.
I love that.
No.
We got into Roller Coaster Tycoon a lot as kids. Yeah,
that was a good one. All right. Well, you at least have answered the second question, which is kind of where did this idea of entrepreneurship come from? You didn't really know what it was, but you were kind of entrepreneurial by nature. So my question becomes, at what point did you decide, you know what, I want to start my own business?
At what point did I decide to be an entrepreneur once I knew there was a name for it? Because I spent a lot of my life building things and selling it. I think that's one of the things I love most about entrepreneurship is you build something from nothing and it's like, oh my gosh, I made this thing. Wow, that's crazy. That didn't exist before. When did I decide I wanted to do it? So I built my career in marketing. I started out in San Diego, then I spent nearly a decade in Chicago, and I worked at a lot of different places. I never actually celebrated a 2-year anniversary at any job because I always moved on before then. Don't judge, don't judge. I was just out there to like gather experiences. But in the last job that I had working for somebody else, I had been employed by so many different types of organizations. I've been employed by agencies, by ad tech companies, in-house client side, large companies, small companies. I'd worked with a lot of, everybody in between. And in the work that I was doing, I had this moment where I was like, I need a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. That's what I need to do my job. Why am I spending 2 hours a day commuting on the nasty L of Chicago, doing like nothing, and like wasting time? And then like, why does it matter what I'm wearing? I need a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection, like some of the women that I worked with were like just so beautiful and fashionable and all these things. And I was like, I just want to wear yoga pants and a black t-shirt and I want that to be fine, so when I realized like these were the only tools that I needed to actually do the work that I was currently doing and being paid to do, I was like, well, I feel like there's maybe a better way I could do this. And so I'd been freelancing since I was like 18. So since I was 18, I started learning graphic design for any graphic designers out there, on Adobe Illustrator 9. They're now on like Adobe Creative Suite, I don't know, like 47. I have no idea what they're on now, but it was like old school. So I started dabbling and teaching myself graphic design. And then by the time I was 18, I got my first freelance paid gig. And so from there, it was like, okay, well, I've been kind of doing freelance stuff on the side for a long time. And then I went corporate and I worked in all these jobs, right? And then it was kind of like this perfect culmination of like, I just think I could do this better. And that's not to cast shade on any like
Right.
past employer. It was just that I thought I could do it in a better way that would support the things that I believed in. Because I also found that a lot of the entities I was working for, you know, like with any business, and it's fair to say that, like I was in the digital marketing space. So I found that people who say new social media would say you should buy social media because social media is
Right.
important for your business. And it's like, okay, sure, that's one part. But like, what about SEO? And what about search engine marketing? And what about your website? And what about this strategy and that strategy? And, you know, and it's like, you're only selling the one thing that you know how to do. And that's not fair. And that's not right that's not right, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
for me, I was like, I think because I have such a holistic background in this space, I can launch an agency doing the thing that I know. And so I launched Brainchild Studios in September of 2016, doing the thing that I know, which is how a lot of business owners become business owners, as they ask people to pay them to do the thing that they know. And then I often tell people, I'm like, okay, well, congratulations. You're a business owner now. Now you get to choose if you want to continue to do the thing that you know or you want to manage people.
Yep.
And it's very difficult line to do both. It's not
Mm.
impossible, and it depends on what you want, but it's definitely a decision you have to make, or at least that's been my experience. So that was a very long-winded response. I do apologize.
No.
But that's when I decided to do my own thing. One thing that irks me is we've got kids coming out of school right now, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm going to ask to make $100,000 because now I have a YouTube channel," or like somebody should just pay me to do this thing. So it's like, with all due respect, sweetheart, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, you have no idea. Why should anyone pay you to do the thing that you don't know what you're doing? So I say that I say that delicately, because I spent a long time working for a lot of different types of organizations, big and small, etc. And I did freelance on the side. And then for me, it just became a certain perfect storm where I had the resources I needed and the opportunity to do so. And I started my own agency, and it was virtual from day one, which was actually something that I, for a long time, felt like I couldn't actually tell people, because at that time, now we're post COVID, or I think we're post COVID. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this was 2016. And when you said to people, oh, no, I don't have a physical brick and mortar location, I have a PO box that you can send mail to, and me and my team operate off of our laptops no matter where we are. People are like, oh, you're not serious. I can't trust you.
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
oh, crap. I can't tell people all the things. I'll just omit pieces. Like, we can still do the job. We can do the job. We'll do a great job. Yeah. So that was a whole thing when I first got started.
Well, I love it. And I love the fact that, you had this feeling of, I think I can do it better. And like, I've already seen it work in freelancing. So let's give it a shot. Like that's really cool. So another one of the questions I ask every guest, and I'm going to tailor it slightly for you, because you have two businesses that we're going to talk about today. Could you compare your first actions between Brainchild and RAYNE IX?
Oh yeah, for sure. Brainchild, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and I blindly followed advice from a myriad of people. And I went all in right away. I would, generally speaking, never recommend for anybody to quit their full-time job and start entrepreneurship and like expect to pay your bills right away. But now that I'm saying that, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. It was not a good idea either. And I don't recommend, I stick by my do as I say, not as I do. So I did that, and the very first thing that I did there was we found the name, figured out the logo and all that kind of stuff, all the basics of how you get going. At the time, found an attorney and an accountant to help me get started. And it was a lot of, I think the greatest challenge I ran into with Brainchild when we first got started was just like nobody knew who I was. Nobody, like, why would I trust you with anything? Which is fair. Like, I hadn't earned that yet, you know? So that caused a whole slew of issues. Now, when I look at the first steps of starting RAYNE IX, I actually started RAYNE IX in February of 2021. And I started it, I had similar steps, like had to find the name, created the logo. But I launched RAYNE IX because I was given the opportunity to launch a passive revenue source, and I needed it to be under this new brand, not under Brainchild Studios. And so it was all very expedited. So within, let's see, I started the company, like filed paperwork in February. And by June, I had named the company, filed the paperwork, done the logo, done the brand book, built a website, built a program, launched a program, designed the workbook, and all of that was done by June. So that's not a typical timeline either. But the difference is that I had so many resources available to me now, you know?
Yeah.
So I knew who my designer was going to be. I had copywriting support. I had a dev team that could help me build it out. I had my accountants. I had my attorneys. I had all of those people. Now, I will say that I did forget how much crap it takes to start the very, very beginnings of a business. You know, like when you have literally nothing, like no infrastructure, no Google Drive folders, no anything set up. I was like, oh shit, I forgot how hard this is. Even though like I've built a program, like I built the starter kit to help people like launch their businesses, I forgot how much work it is to really just like get through the admin crap. But yeah, I'd say, you know, it was a solid 18-month ramp up in starting RAYNE IX as I kind of, you know, wound down Brainchild this time around. And when I started Brainchild, I quit my full-time job. And then that company ended up becoming my very first client. But it was a different ramp up period, different resources available. I had somewhat of an idea of knowing what to do versus relying on everybody else to tell me how to manage things.
Exactly. And the stress of what do you put a lot of your focus on? What do you spend time on? Whereas this time around, you're just like, yeah, that's not actually a big deal. That's something I need to focus on.
And I will say too, we had already built a lot of systems with Brainchild that I could easily copy over, you know? So it was like first acknowledging, okay, those are the systems we need, but also they like 90% already exist. So let's just bring those over here and tweak them a little bit. So that was helpful.
Yeah. So I want to dive a little bit into the shutdown of Brainchild. You have this agency that is successful. You do want to pivot. And so my first question really is, how did you think through the decision of actually shutting it down? Because that seems, again, you put in what, 4, 5, 6 years of work.
6 years, yeah.
And you're going to shut it down. Like, that's terrifying. What went into that decision?
A lot. A lot. That decision definitely was not made lightly. In July of 2020, I started working with a coach, and for any entrepreneur out there, like I absolutely recommend, I mean, for anybody, but especially entrepreneurs, coaches can be magic makers. But I started working with a coach, and I started working with her because I wanted to level up my leadership skills. I was like, I think my team is asking me to be a better, stronger leader. This is why I'm engaging her. And she's amazing, and I'm still working with her now. But in that journey of working with my coach and getting clearer on like what I want and what I didn't want, I started to realize in probably starting about April of 2021, like I don't want to do this anymore. And the shitty thing as an entrepreneur, like if you're working for somebody else and you decide you don't want to do that anymore, you give a 2-week notice and then you leave and you go on to the next thing. when you are an entrepreneur and a business owner, you don't get to give a 2-week notice. Like there's a lot more that goes into it. And so for me, going through that process, I felt like very torn inside because I knew that I wanted to do RAYNE IX. I knew I wanted to work with women small business owners, but I also very much loved and was so grateful for my team and my clients and the recognition and everything that we'd built with Brainchild. And I felt that by making the decision to no longer continue Brainchild, that I was failing everybody, including myself and my family and my team. And I was just letting everybody down. And so that took a minute to get over. And I will also say that I had people throughout that time that were like, Kiley, if you don't want to do this anymore, that's okay. And I didn't want to hear that at the time, but I am grateful to them for saying it because it did give me external permission. Not that I needed it, but it was nice to hear that I wasn't going to like devastate anyone, which is like, not that I think that my whole world, not that I think anyone's world would have come crumbling down, upon the closure of Brainchild. But, especially when you have employees, you are responsible for people's livelihoods and income and that of their family. And it's a lot of responsibility. And so it was 2021 was just a really tough year, year. Like we had key people who were instrumental in the growth of the business not work out for various reasons, which was disappointing across the board. We had me personally, I was just trying to figure out what I was doing in my life. I was like, what do I want? Where am I going here? I said yes to a fractional CMO opportunity because I was like, oh, okay, I'm building my team. They're going to take it. They're going to run with it. Now I get to do more of the thing I want to do, but I totally spread myself too thin. And then I was just like freaking out all the time, working way too many hours, not doing the job I wanted to across the board. Then feeling like resentful of having to justify how I was spending my time. And I was like, I'm the boss. Nobody gets to challenge me, which is like, that's not necessarily true. But it was just a lot of things. And come December of 2021, we had hired 3 full-time people, and then I had to let 2 of them go because we weren't meeting the revenue numbers that we needed to meet. We operated at a loss for the first time in history because of those reasons. And it was just like a facepalm moment of like, what am I doing? And then, I went through a couple things personally, and I was like, I knew that, so I'm now married and my husband and I hope to have a family. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to carry a baby at any point in time, it's not going to be in this body because this body is having heart palpitations and riddled with anxiety. So something has to change here because this is insane. And I actually had a pivotal moment with a coach of mine who unfortunately actually just passed away. But I talked to him and I was bawling, just like, I can't do this anymore. It's not working. Like, I don't want to shut it down. It's too important, but I'm going to drive myself crazy. And he was like, Kiley, just do the thing that you want to do. It'll be fine. I was like, okay, and so I took a 2-week hiatus at the end of the year because we shut things down and like really did some soul searching. And I was like, well, shit, I guess this is what we call a 12-month exit strategy. And the first day of 2022, I told my team, I was like, or my employees, I was like, this is my plan. And I'd like you to come with me if you'll have me. And I found out later there was like some slacking going on and some like quick text message and like, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Are you going to go? Are you going to go? Oh, if you're going to go, I'll go, I was like, oh, thanks guys. And so we brought over the core team. But I will say, like, I think the pivotal breaking moment for me was that call with, his name is Craig. It was like December, I think it was like 12th. Maybe of 2020, whatever that Friday was of 2021. And I got off that and I was just bawling and I was like, and I have to be done.
Yeah.
But it was very important to me to make sure that I did it in quote unquote the right way or the best way that I possibly could, because it was super important to me that we made sure that one, we not only needed to hit the revenue goals we needed to for 2022 so that everyone got paid and, you know, we could process payroll and stuff. But I wanted to make sure that all of our clients were taken care of and that they all had transition plans in place so nobody felt like they were hung out to dry. I wanted to make sure that any contractors that were not coming with us were taken care of, and like we were able to help them supplement their revenue streams or get them new gigs, etc. So it was just really important to me that we made sure that we close things down in the quote unquote right way. And I'm sure people can say like, oh, you did or didn't do a great job. But I feel looking back that we did it the best that we could have done. And I will say that it was a challenge because I did ask my team, I was like, you can't tell anybody about this for a couple of months. Cause it was just like, we can't let people know that we're closing down before we're ready to tell them that we're closing down, because we might not make payroll, you know, like, right. And they were amazing. And I had one team member, she's like, can I tell my husband yet? I was like, oh, you still haven't told him? And she's like, no, you said not to. And I was like, oh, thank you. You should tell him now though. You know, I was like, now's the time. But November 2nd of 2022 was the day my podcast aired where we officially announced we are shutting down Brainchild. And that was the first, I was actually at a conference that day. And as I was meeting people, I was like, actually, this is the first time I can say this out loud. And it's been like 2 years in the making. I'm shutting down my agency and I'm going all in on this thing. And it was this moment that like literally for almost 2 years, I felt like I had not been able to tell my truth. And November 2nd of 2022 was like freedom day for me. I get to finally like be totally honest about everything. It was really nice.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. You bring up just so many important and very kind of salient points around. You can't put in a 2-week notice, especially if you got people that you pay their salaries. So that's a whole process and also a burden that you got to work through. And I'm, as you were talking, I had this image where you're like doing the movie scene big. Hey guys, I'm leaving. Who's coming with me?
Yeah, kind of.
Like awkward pause. And you're just like.
Yeah, like Jerry Maguiring it. Who's coming with me? Just kind of put, you know, it was like less dramatic than that, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And to that point, one of the questions that I did want to ask you, because you highlighted like the importance of bringing your team with you, right? The core team. And I want to explore this idea, or not even idea, but this challenge that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have around finding amazing talent and finding help and then nurturing that talent and growing them. So tell me a little bit about that journey of finding the right people and then building them up.
Woof. I mean, Buzz, your girlfriend, woof. I've been like a broken record saying that people matter most, and it's totally true. My team is actually the biggest reason why I opted not to sell Brainchild and to shut it down instead, because I knew if I were to sell, I would have to sell my team. And then I'd have to find new team members, which I didn't want to do because I spent 6 years hiring dozens and dozens. I mean, I would love to go back and see how many people like I've interviewed, you know, and how many people we actually brought on, whether they were a contractor or an employee. Like I've hired dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people. But I will say, like right now, Melissa and Aaron are my 2 core employees, and they've both been with me for over 3 years, coming up on 4 years. And I have personal relationships with both of them. Aaron she was one of my very first students when I was an adjunct professor at Marquette. And then we hired her as a contractor and then a part-time employee and then full-time employee. And she's a godsend. And then Melissa and I used to be friends when over a decade ago when I lived in Chicago. And then she started off joining us as my executive assistant, and then she worked her way into marketing manager, and now she's our marketing and engagement director with RAYNE IX. And it's just been an incredible journey. And, you know, it goes two ways. You know, I think for entrepreneurs, we are challenged with being a leader and a manager because those are not the same things. And if you build a big enough team, maybe you don't have to be a manager and you're just a leader. It depends. But it also requires creating a psychologically safe space for your team so that they have the freedom to voice what they need. Like I will say, like, multiple times over the last number of years working with both of them specifically, like, we've all been in conversations where we've been crying, like everybody, but we've created a safe space for that to be okay, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, either I was saying, hey, this is what I need from you, or they were saying, hey, Kiley, I need this right now in order to keep my sanity, in order to be okay. Like, Erin, at the beginning of last year, she texted me the Sunday before we like returned from break. And she was like, hi, so I want to move to Florida, but can I keep my job? It's okay if you tell me that I can't. I'll totally say that's no problem. I just thought I'd ask. And I was like, okay, well, first, I'd be a total asshole if I told you no. Also, I'd be a huge hypocrite because they built a virtual company for this reason exactly. We'll figure this out. But it was like, I was so grateful that she felt comfortable asking for what she wanted. And even at the end of last year, like, I ask a lot of my team. I do. But I also am so grateful that they have the strength and that we've created the space for them to step up and say, hey, no, I can't get that done today. I can do it tomorrow, but it's not going to happen today. Or, hey, it's 6:00 and I'm calling it a night. Okay, great, good. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. You know? And we've brought over a couple of key contractors as well, who have been with us for years. And it's the same story there. Again, there's a lot that goes into finding the right team members. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on that, but I think you have to, well, from my experience, you have to truly like each other. And especially in a small business, if you have like a family feel like we do, we love each other. Like, I freaking love my team so much, and it's a giant love fest. And it's such a joy to bring any new person in. And then it's also like, you're kind of like crossing your fingers, like, okay, are you going to love us as much too? Are you going to love it? Are you going to love it? We'll see, you know, like, because you have to love it. You really have to love it. You have to love the work you're doing. And I think part of, where I was going with like the leader and the manager, my team's roles have shifted over the years, whether that was based on what I needed them to do or based off of, as we got to learn more about what their strengths and weaknesses were. It's okay to not be good at everything, but I think as a leader and a manager, you're really failing yourself and your team when you don't acknowledge the strengths of each team member and then create the opportunity for them to be successful in their role. And that will probably be uncomfortable, and you'll have to have some challenging conversations. But getting really clear on what everybody's strengths are and then creating the opportunity for them to succeed in that way is the greatest thing that you can do for yourself and your team. And that's something that we've talked a lot about. And I'm constantly asking the team, like, hey, I understand you could do this. Will you be happy doing this? Are you going to hate me for doing this? Like, let's have the honest conversation. And I'm not always going to be able to give you the perfect job description, but I'm going to do my very best. And we have this two-way conversation that says, hey, I'm tapped out right now and I'm not the right person for this. We need somebody to fill XYZ seats, you know, or take over these responsibilities. And it's like, okay, great. Give me some time. I'm on it. Just hold tight with me, you know? And I think I've done a pretty good job. I'm definitely not perfect by any means, but you know, we're getting there. So, again, very long-winded answers. Sorry, but
No,
just
this is
take
the
care
goal.
of your people. That would be my biggest thing, is like, just take care of your people. Like, we've gone through weddings, we've gone through deaths, we've gone through babies, we've gone through houses, we've gone through moves, we've gone through lots of stuff. And at the end of the day, the thing that really matters most is the individual. So like, when shit is hitting the fan, have the honest conversation and be a human about it. Set realistic expectations about, like, okay, but this is still a business and we still need these things to happen, but I need you to be honest with me so that ABC people can cover for you while you take the time you need. You know, like, just be human. Just be human. And it goes so far.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think, and I love the long-winded answers. The less I talk, the better. We're here to learn from you. No, I think a lot of my time in the corporate world allowed me to practice some of that leadership muscle. I tell people all the time, I'm a much better leader than I am a manager. It's just, I just know my strengths. But what I've tried to consistently do with all of my teams over the years is exactly what you said. Let's talk about what your strengths are. Let's talk about what you want to develop, what you want to do, and what you want to get better at.
Absolutely.
And then let's also acknowledge the things that it's probably not your strongest suit. Okay, cool. Can we create a team where all 10 of these tasks and activities get done and everyone's happy? Because that's the balancing act. And then we can create our own like look and feel and culture and vibe and say, hey, can I tap into that? Because I want to learn. That's really the goal. And, thankfully throughout my career, I've worked at big companies that have the resources to do that. Yeah, now at a small startup, I'm trying to figure out, okay, with the 3 founders, how are we going to do this? And then when we bring on more team members, how do we keep this balance and this feel while still keeping this loving and supportive environment at the same time? Yeah. It's often an overlooked challenge for entrepreneurs.
And it's a huge challenge. And I think you bring up another good point. You know, for anybody coming from the corporate space, you're probably in small business for a reason. You felt like corporate wasn't for you anymore, and that's all well and good. But the nice thing about corporate is the systems and structures and resources that they do have. You know, so it's a very different place. Like, it sounds beautiful and sexy and idealistic to build something from scratch, and it is. But it's also a shit ton of work. Like, it's like, oh, here's the plot of land. Now build me a mansion. Oh, but you need a shovel? Okay, you have to sell something to get the shovel. What do you have to sell? You have to, like, it's a barter system in a lot of ways for a little while. Whereas corporate is like, oh, well, here's the blueprint and here is your team and here are the timelines. You have all of that. And so to entrepreneurs listening, I'd say just be gentle with yourselves, because it is beautiful and it is sexy and it is amazing and super rewarding. But man, it's a process. It's a process.
Yeah, absolutely. So to the emotion piece, and I want to talk a little bit about Welcome to Aloma, which listening to your intro, I need to do an intro for the podcast.
I have to actually redo my intro, but thank you.
but it's really cool because mine's I'm not creative. So, hey, it's the Be Helpful podcast. Every entrepreneur is trying to help. Yours, you kind of use the term for creating a space, which I think is awesome. And so I'm curious, as a podcast host who talks to entrepreneurs and kind of shares your own journey, what entrepreneurial emotions that let me retake that one. What entrepreneurial emotions do you see most common with your guests and also within yourself?
Entrepreneurial emotions. Ooh. All of them. Like, I think this is an emotional journey. I would actually be curious to talk to entrepreneurs who say that they have no feelings about entrepreneurship, or like very few. I'm just curious as to how on earth that is a thing. Because I'd say the number one feeling I have probably witnessed is overwhelm. You know, everybody, there's always like 1,001 things to do, and everybody knows that. And, but the only people who really understand it are the other entrepreneurs who also have 1,001 things to do. I'd say overwhelm is a big one. And to go back to, thank you for calling out the creating space. Like, the reason I did that was through my coaching, what I realized I needed in order to be able to create and build and process was space. And so it's been a big, very intentional thing for me to create spaces for things to be thought through and built and created, etc. So the podcast is one space, but we talk about emotions and the emotional space to process that. I'd say overwhelm. I'd say loneliness. It's so freaking lonely, and every single entrepreneur I've talked to has echoed that. It's just lonely because nobody else gets it except other people just like you, and you're typically not, like, you don't live with, you're not in a relationship with other people that are doing the same thing. Some people are, but like my mom, dad, sister, husband, best friends, they're not all entrepreneurs. My sister is. Some people's husbands might be, but not typically do you have like every single person surrounding you. Also, that would be like a lot of type A personalities, like a lot. I'd say overwhelm, loneliness, but I'd also say hope, because I don't think we would do this work if we didn't believe that the work we're doing mattered. You know, your podcast, Be Helpful. I've never met one entrepreneur that when you ask, like, why did you start this thing? And they were like, oh, well, just to make a shitload of money, and I don't care who I step on in the process to get there. No. Every single person I've talked to, at least, says, well, I want to help people do XYZ. I want to help make this thing better. You know, it's always, I want to help. So I think, you know, you're spot on with the title of this podcast. So I think hope is a big one, that we hope and we believe that the work that we're doing matters.
Yeah, no, those are all spot on. My three would also be lonely. It's so freaking lonely. Overwhelmed, and then my third one would probably say obsessed. They're just obsessed with the problem. They're obsessed with it, and they can't stop until they fix it. And I would say you could probably define these things, but obsessed and passionate might blur together. I don't know one entrepreneur that can effectively stop thinking about their business. Like, it just never happens. Yes.
And you know what? To be fair and compassionate to all of our significant others and best friends out there who don't understand, it's like, and I get it, and you wouldn't understand. And I don't have kids yet, but from what I hear, you never stop thinking about your children. And it's like that. You know, you've birthed this thing that is in many ways, hopefully not forever, but in many ways reliant on you to eat, sleep, and breathe. And it is your job to make sure that it is nourished and that it is cared for, that it is seen and that it is heard. And you are always thinking about how to make it better and how to improve it and how to create a good life for it, you know? And that doesn't stop because it's 5 o'clock. Like, it just doesn't. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but there's that.
No, I think you're spot on, because my wife and I joke. I had 2 babies in February of last year. My son was born on the 8th, and Yenso launched on the 22nd. So now it's just this obsessive thing, and even with, you know, the podcast is a business in its own right, and I am obsessed over that too. It's when you had your post on LinkedIn about feeling torn, like it really resonated because that's how I feel constantly. I'm torn between, okay, it's Saturday and this kid wants to crawl all over me and I want to play and I want to enjoy this moment, but I just need to grab a pen because I'm thinking about something that I need to write down.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's just this constant. Yeah.
I feel bad because you will very rarely ever find me without my phone because I have very extensive, like in the notes app of my iPhone, I have very extensive folder structure because that is where I'm like, I have an idea. But if I don't organize it, I'm never going to find it again. So I was like, okay, what entity does this go into and where does this go? And does that need to go into another notepad and blah, blah, blah. Okay, got it. Good. You know?
Yep.
I also do a lot of like verbal dictation. So it's like I'm driving or something and I hold up my phone and then my favorite is when I do this when I ride my bike. So for a little while I would like ride my bike and have in my headphones and then like have my phone like on my handlebars and like I listen to an audiobook and then I get an idea. So then I like quick pause my audiobook, I swipe over to the notes app and then I'm riding my bike and I'm dictating. I'm like, these are my newest blog post ideas. And you have to like enunciate it. And it's like the wind is going by. And then there are like people running and they're like, what is wrong with her? And I'm like, how do you define whatever it is, you know? And it's just like, I look like a crazy person. But yes, got to get those ideas out because otherwise they're just gone.
Yeah, no, we are so similar. It's kind of terrifying. I have so many folders in Apple Notes, and then mine is pacing. I'll just pace and I'll just dictate to my phone.
Yes.
It's so ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of walks. So if I'm not on my bike, now I'm just walking. And I'm like, I got to get a better dictation app because sometimes it just stops in the middle. And I'm like, God, what were the last two sentences I said? I don't remember. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I got one more question before we dive into some of the quick hitters. What would you say? Because I think this podcast journey is an exploration in and by itself. I call it. I didn't get an MBA, but this is my version of an MBA. This is my master class of learning from a bunch of different entrepreneurs. So, what would you say was the biggest lesson you've learned from podcasting and interviewing other business owners?
From podcasting and interviewing other business owners. We are all just as similar as we are different. So many people I've talked to have similar struggles. But everybody has like a slightly different take on things. But there's situations, it's like the startups have the same problems that the people who have been in business for 10 years have. They're just on a different scale. And the people who have been in business for 10 years just have more resources than the startups do.
Yeah.
So we are all just as similar as we are different.
Yeah. Oh, you're spot on. It's the same problem, the same challenge. It's just a different perspective at a different scale. You're absolutely right. All right. Let's hit some of these fun ones.
Okay.
What are some books that you'd recommend other entrepreneurs to read?
Oh man. I'm actually working on a list of this right now because I have so many. Oh man. I want to give all my best ones.
I just built a library on the Be Helpful podcast website. Check it out.
You should send it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a library of just all the books that guests have recommended.
Oh, I love this. Okay. Oh man, no pressure. I got to make sure I give good ones. Books I've most recently been obsessed with. Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. The Widest Net by Pamela Slim. Also The Body of Work or Your Body of Work by Pamela Slim. There was another one. Resonant Leadership was really good by, I think it's Robert Boyakis. That one was really, really good. Oh my God, I want to I want to open my phone and look at my app right now to tell me all the books I've read. But
I feel like I want to make like a Kiley wing. Like this is just all the books from Kiley. I love it. You done rallied
well,
off
that's
a
just the
bunch
starting point. That's just the tip of the iceberg. But those would be like, you know what? I want to make sure I'm giving you all my best I got here. Again, in my notes app, I have all notes from all the books that I've read. So I just want to make sure I'm giving you all of my best ones. Atlas of the Heart was really good by Brene Brown. Not a business book, but just like incredible how she breaks things down. Oh, for any speakers, the Referable Speaker by Michael Port and Andrew Davis. That one's amazing. If you're looking to productize your services, Productized by Aisha Armstrong was really, really good.
Love it. I love it.
Okay, I think those are my best. Oh, well, Greg McEwen, Effortless, and Essentialism are incredible as well. Okay, I'm sure I have more, but I'll stop there.
I love it. No, I absolutely love that list. It's amazing. And you're going to see it in the library very soon.
Okay.
Okay. What question should I ask the next guest?
Oh, fun. What question should you ask the next guest? Ask the next guest what their favorite vacation has been.
Okay, now you have to tell us what your favorite vacation has been.
Oh, very sneaky. Oh man, my favorite. Oh boy. Crap, I didn't think that one through. I'm gonna pick my my honeymoon, which was my most recent trip. The reason I said that I think you should ask your next person this is I think it tells a lot about people when they talk about travel and like the experiences and what matters to them. Which I don't know what this is about to say about me, but so I just went to the Amalfi Coast in Italy at the end of October of 2022 for my honeymoon. And I definitely gained like 6 pounds from eating and drinking everything because that's one of my love languages. But it was just beautiful, like just stunning. And the people were so kind. Again, we ate so much, but I loved it. And yeah, we were on a lot of different modes of transportation. That was not my favorite part, but it was just beautiful, like just stunning to know that there are people that will never have that experience is very humbling. And to know that there are people who that's their daily experience is wild. And to know that like centuries ago, there were like kings and stuff roaming around, like it's just crazy. That's wild.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. And my last question. Tell people, well, not even a question, more of a statement. Tell people how they can learn more about you, learn more about RAYNE IX, and also be part of the 100 Collective.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening up until this point. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. My handle is Kiley, Kiley Peters. RAYNE IX is RAYNEIX.com. That's also our handle for LinkedIn and Instagram. And the 100 Collective is the.100.co on Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn as well. And the website will be the100co.com. And reach out, find us, and you can sign up for the wait list for the 100 Collective. We are hosting a launch party in February of 2023 and are very excited for the platform as a whole. So looking forward to building this community.
I love it. Kiley, thank you. This has been incredible. And I'm sure we'll talk some more because we are nerds of the same feather.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Boyaga.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Take care.